Hello and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richey of the MHRT Network. Over that away. Oh, cool. I don't have to point the wrong way now. Over that away is DZ representing his Los Angeles Chargers, and down directly below is Jack Kenna representing, as one would expect, his San Francisco 49ers. Oh, I mean Las Vegas Raiders.
Okay, that's better.
And we're gonna go ahead and kick the. We're gonna go off and kick off the show here. We have a ton to cover. I mean, let's put it this way. I don't think you were paying attention if you were not surprised by at least the three of our teams cut down to the 53. Right? Like, I think it's fair to say that all three of us had some major surprises in our 53 man cut
Yeah,
down
I
in
didn't
terms
catch
of
I didn't catch
who
the first
stayed.
part. Yeah, definitely some surprises.
Yeah, I mean things that we didn't expect, some things that were kind of surprising, and then we have the simping for Pickett there down in the Vegas, where they decided to go ahead and just go all in on a backup quarterback for their team there with a trade. So I think it'll be really interesting to kind of see how things play out, where things land. And then, of course, I think we all had some folks that were cut, and as well as some folks that we kept that we were perhaps slightly surprised with, and we will all get into that throughout the entirety of the show. I'm gonna just kick things off with just kind of a brief piece here. I just want to say that this is now the 21st out of 22 years that my Denver Broncos have kept an undrafted free agent on the 53 man roster come cut down. That is that's a pretty big milestone overall when you look at you know things like attracting undrafted free agents. And for those of you that did not catch who made the 53 man roster, it was one of the dudes that I predicted was likely going to make my 53 man, and
The
that was
linebacker?
Corene Reed, inside linebacker, the guy that I've been touting all along here on the show. So it's nice to know that I can still kind of pick him out of the crowd and stuff, and another reason why we should have more viewers on this show, because we're able to capture and pick out players and pass them off to you as to guys that you should pay attention to. I have a few major concerns and everything like that I will get into a little bit later on, but I'm going to first throw down to the man of the hour who's got all of the different things. Let's go ahead and throw over to Jack to talk about what his Las Vegas Raiders did, because you were busy.
Busy. Well, first thing, probably the biggest thing I want to kind of start off with, I'm going to go back a little bit in time here, is on Monday, my number one wide receiver in Jacoby Myers requested a trade, which I don't understand why they can't figure something out. When you look at a player, he's got zero money left on his contract. He goes to voluntary minicamp. He goes, to the offseason and plays and plays in every game that they ask him, goes to every single practice. Even when he asks for a trade, he's still going to practice. So I'm just not understanding the concept or the mindset when you got a player which is doing like what a Max Crosby does. He's day in and day out. He works. He shows you where, you got guys, like Trey Henderson doesn't even go stay in the whole state. He goes back home to his home state. Or Micah Parsons, you get pictures of him laying on a training table on the sideline and not even participating. But this guy is showing you how much of a hard worker he is. And it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. And I'm going to circle back to him some more. So then, right after he requested a trade, the Raiders go out and get Amari Cooper. Okay, so if you're a Raiders fan, oh, and by the way, just because, we're doing me first, I always like to do this. Nabman, James Farrell, Sacktown Mike, and Raider Zach. I see you all out there in the chat. So salute my brothers. So then you go get Amari Cooper. Okay, Amari Cooper, the Raiders drafted, number 4 overall. Good player, break 1,000 yards every year. But as time went on, he's not showing. There's games where he just doesn't show up, and he's not putting in the effort. When you got a Jacoby Myers putting in the effort, Amari's 31. Jacoby Myers is 28 years old, so he's a few years younger. Jacoby Myers didn't drop a single ball last year. That's been an absolute big issue with Amari Cooper, is dropping balls. And you look at it, and again, 2 years ago removed, he had like over 1,200 yards. So he can be productive. Last year, when he had a great quarterback on the Bills and Josh Allen, well, he didn't even make, the playoff squad. They didn't even put him on there. So I don't know how the Raiders go from a player that is a total team player, shows you everything that you really want on your team. What's up, Sierra? So that you want on a team, to a guy who doesn't always put the effort in, and you're going to pay that man. So, I mean, Amari's got 2 years, $6 million. Or no, 1 year, $6 million. I'm sorry. So where I'm seeing Jacoby, and, I got to give my boy Severe, on this one. And I said this, before, like after, you guys signed, with the Broncos, Cortland Sutton. I'm like, well, that's around the money he should be making. So if you look at it, he probably needs a 2 year extension, about $30 million apiece, but he's only getting like 11 or 12 million. So divide that out by 3 years, then that puts him right at the 23 million mark. And that's where Cortland is. And that's where I kind of see him, where, there might be the top wide receiver of that individual team, where maybe not a true number 1, on other rosters. But I also see it this way. Okay, who did the Raiders have at quarterback? They had nobody's on their team as quarterback. And yes, Devontae got out of here, and it really had Brock Bowers and him as the 2 main targets. And I can see them spreading the ball around a lot more this year with the different wide receivers. But at the same time, now we got a Geno Smith. So if we got a Geno Smith, we finally got a better quarterback. He breaks 1,000 yards. Well, I think he can even do better. So I'm really not understanding. Maybe it's just a ploy, because, again, he's still showing up to practice. He's just saying, hey, look, I'm frustrated. So, well, and, Sierra, that if you look at it, just 2 years, 60 million as an extension, but divided by 3, because then that also gets this year. So that puts him at 23 million, which, if I added it out right, I think Cortland Sutton is the 18th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL right now. So you're putting him at the 18th, and every year the salary cap's going to go up. So by next year, these guys could be at the, 22nd, highest, then maybe the 25th highest, and you still have them under contract. So that has been the interesting thing. And with Cooper, yeah, I like the guy, but again, he's just a different type of animal. And, but we got him back for free. We traded him away to Dallas, years ago, and got a first round pick out of him. So I can't argue with that, for depth wise. But it doesn't really make any sense. I just hope this is just, they're still working it out behind the scenes, to get this stuff done. Last week's game, which, again, I will say is I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, because there was just so much happening today, and I don't know for how much time we're going to have to get through everything. But, again, we played the Cardinals, and the Raiders regressed. Their first stringers looked very good, which they did play a series, but they were not going against the Cardinals number 1. They're going against their number 2s. So, yes, they look good, but they're going against the number 2s. But the whole thing on that, Aiden O'Connell fractures his hand in the game, and now he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. So, which also then transpired another transaction with the Raiders getting Kenny Pickett. And they got him for a 5th round pick. At first, I was like, really? You're going to trade a 5th round pick? But I had to kind of digest it a little bit. Pickett, he's kind of bounced around for his 3rd year. I think he's on his 4th team now. So, I mean, that's quite a bit of movement for a young guy that was a first-round draft pick for the Steelers. But I'm just looking, after, Cam Miller coming in for O'Connell. And the first game, he looked great. The last 2 games, he looked like a rookie. And just he's not ready. So it's like you have to do something. So my original mindset was like, hey, let's just wait till the cut down day. A lot of quarterbacks are going to get cut out of this. And guys like, I was hoping for like a James Winston, but no, we traded for Pickett. So that kept Winston on Cleveland, or maybe like a Kyle Trask, out of Tampa, where he was a 2nd-round pick. And, again, connections with Spytech, but getting Pickett, and I'm looking at it, he's probably better than Aiden O'Connell. He's definitely better than, Cam Miller right now. So, giving up a 5th when I know we're going to get a comp pick for, Hobbs, going to be either a 4th or a 5th. So when you're giving up, saying, hey, we're going to give the last pick of that round, so it's almost like a 6th rounder, I'm not going to argue with that, because if Geno went down and we're putting our whole faith on Cam Miller, then you might as well just call the season a wrap. So I can't argue with that one. Cut downs. There really wasn't a ton of surprise. I was more surprised by the people they kept versus the people they didn't keep. So they did cut Miller, and they also cut Tommy Millott, the 2 quarterbacks. So the only 2 rookies that were cut by
Jack,
this team. All
Jack,
other 9 were.
do you want to break down like cut downs, or do you want to, we could circle back to like cut downs and stuff like that? Oh, he's.
Hold on one second. Sorry, my dogs were barking. Couldn't hear you guys.
That's all right. I was gonna say, like, you were gonna get into cut downs and stuff with the Raiders. I was thinking maybe we could circle back on the cut downs. You kind of gave your trade stuff, and then kind of like a game recap, and then we'll just go.
That sounds good to me.
We'll circle back to cut downs and stuff like that. Richie, you want me to go next? What do you think?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. We also had a trade. Chargers also traded, which we desperately needed. I was surprised that they went for a trade, but after seeing how some teams acted in the waiver wires today and some of their cuts, it kind of makes more sense to me. But they traded for Austin Deculus from the Texans. It was for a conditional 7th-round pick. He has been primarily a right tackle for them. It's more of a backup. 6'5", 321. He was from LSU. Decent. He's showing progress. I think he was drafted in 2023. I think he's a 6th rounder. I'm not sure what draft pick he's from, what position he's from, but he's shown he's improved quite a bit, especially in the pass blocking realm. So I was like, at first, that meme, like that Snoop Dogg meme, like who right. Kind of thing. And then there's a lot of those players that just, you're like, who are they? And then you look into them and I'm like, okay, this makes sense. But there was a lot of other players throughout the waiver wire where, me and the fans are like, why are they not getting it? Like Dalton Reisner signed with the Bengals today, right? And I know a lot of teams are going after him, but I think one thing fans got to realize, man, there's such a thing called a scheme fit. He came from the Minnesota Vikings, which were primarily a zone blocking team, and the Bengals run a hybrid zone, so it makes sense for them to work together. So I was like trying to tell the Chargers fans, like, he probably, that's, there's apples and oranges kind of. I mean, I guess O-line's the same thing, but they're probably looking for guys that are more used to the type of scheme they run, power block, gap, things like that. The game, real quick, we played the Niners for our conclusion. I have a ton of notes, but I'm not going to drag through all the notes. It was a really slow game. It was like back to back to back 3-and-outs on both sides of the balls with the Niners, the Chargers. I think the Niners secondary looks really good. But whatever, you guys probably know that. There was a lot of penalties in this game, and I think that's how the Chargers made some decisions, especially why they went and traded for Austin Deculus. And a lot of them were on the offensive line. But the guys that stood out were the guys who have been standing out all preseason. And that's Nico Reed, that's Marlo Wax, and Jamari Caldwell as well. And another thing is there was guys that got cut because of how they looked in preseason. Remember, I think it was last week I was talking about Luke Grimm and how he returned a punt for a touchdown. Well, he had 2 muffed punts right off the dome. It was like Groundhog Day. Both of them time he was looking up and they hit him in the exact same spot in his face mask. And it's just like, I guess it's jitters, but dude, like not a good look. And he got cut, and I don't think he was re-signed to the practice squad. I'm not 100 on it, but I'm like 90% sure he wasn't re-signed. Some guys got shook up in that game, but Marlo Wax, another guy that we'll get into later on the show, he had a sack fumble recovery. Dude is just, he went all out in this game, and it showed. And he had a presser before our show talking about he was, thinking like, this may be my last game I ever play in the NFL. I'm an undrafted free agent, so I'm going to go out and give it my all. And him doing that, he made the 53 roster as a UDFA out of Syracuse. So my hat's off to that guy, and he's been a fan favorite as well. I think that one thing is our 4th-string quarterback, DJ, not going to pronounce his last name. He came in after Heineke got shooken up, and it was like magic. The dude was just lights out, just lasering his throws to his weapons, and scored a touchdown to Rondé Gadsden. And it was like, holy shit, like, wow, dude, like, where's this been? And then the second half started, and it was like a light switch got flipped off, and there was none of that. So it was kind of interesting to see by that from him.
I actually wonder if that was a script.
I don't know, man. It was bizarre because he was just lights out. He was lights out when he took over, and then that second half going in, from halftime, it was like a completely different story. But could have been Rich. I know we talked about that last week, kind of like the scripts. I wrote so many notes. The game was just, it was whatever. I was looking for the guys that stood out, and then I'm relying on some guys talking about the trenches and trench play and things like that. I took a lot of notes going up into halftime, and then I kind of gradually watched the second half. And, another good thing to see was our second-year guy, Justin Boygby, who was a project player. They even said it when they drafted him from Alabama last year. This guy is a monster D-tackle. They moved him on the inside. He was an end in Alabama. He's batting passes down, which is a good sign. I like that. So, and then going back to that DJ guy, he threw an interception, a pick six, just staring a guy down. It was like I said, it was night and day. Two different halves. It was just bizarre. He's got the tools. He just has to, he needs that work done, So I don't see him starting in the league, but good guy to have on your practice squad. But we lost that game too, which I don't really care about. I don't really mention scores or anything like that. But there were some good plays, good players, some good stuff happened, some bad stuff happened, a lot of penalties. And one thing is I thought at the start of the game, the offensive line that has been horrendously bad throughout preseason looked a little better, and then it progressively got worse throughout the game. So yeah, it was it's one of those things, and it's one of those things like, hey, and we'll get into this later on the show, but it's like you guys are seeing this as well, right? Like, so when cut downs happen or whatever, let's get some other guys in here, some more scheme fit guys. And there was a lot that I saw at waivers, and we'll see what happens because, there's still waivers go on tomorrow, so we won't know anything till tomorrow. See if they can pick up another guy or so. But I like them. I feel like this offensive line is missing at least one more depth guy, particularly a guard, in my opinion.
Yeah, so with regards to my Denver Broncos, I'll start off real quick with the Saints game. We won. Not a particular shocker there. Starters played a lot more in that game, so that was the plan from Sean Payton all along, which was a little starters, no starters, and then a reasonable smattering of starters at the very last game. And then it was an immediate pull of the starters and the other folks and like right into depth, like pure depth. It was all evaluation components and stuff at that point. To Audric Estime's credit, that was his best game of the preseason. But when you're talking about a 5th round draft pick and a guy that is taking until the 3rd preseason game of his sophomore season and then regressed throughout the whole last year, like you're kind of, the answer is no. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the answer is just no. And it could be that it's a scheme issue. It could be a whole host of other things, right? Like, I totally get it. I understand. As you said, DZ, you kind of missed the fact that Reisner's first 4 years were with my Denver Broncos. In fact, he's a Colorado native. So he's even used to playing in like thin air and all that kind of stuff. So he's got the benefit of all that. But even Reisner was grading out poorly in Denver when we were running power schemes, which I think you and your fan base need to kind of just take a deep breath on. Like, what you guys do kind of matters. Your scheme matters a lot. You're not going to get a really quick, lightweight, nimble dude playing in a power scheme for the most part. There's rare air exceptions, but like the answer to that is typically no. You're dealing with the legit large kind of mauling bears kind of thing at the offensive line for those power type schemes, because it's all about shifting and moving a dude off the ball, and you're generally not going to get that with the lightweight offensive linemen. And frankly, today's NFL has greatly changed as well with the zone blocking scheme, including outside zone, by the way. And that's because these young linemen that are coming out of college, they're coming out. I think we've talked about this, I don't know, countless number of times now on the show, but I'll say it till I'm blue in the face until all the GMs in the league finally wake up. Is, dudes that are coming out that are 6'6" and 330 are able to move faster and better with faster twitch than some of these 280-pound offensive linemen did back in the glory days of the outside zone scheme. And so, when you're talking about mobility and ability as well, these guys are all more than capable of running that outside zone, despite the fact that they are just enormous human beings.
Mamas need to raise offensive linemen, not running backs.
Yeah. And so, I just happened to notice this. So Raider Zach, I completely agree. I think at every point throughout the process, you and your team should be always aiming towards the North Star of making your roster better. Yep. With that in mind, the rest of my comments on this show, while they may not be what people want to hear in Broncos country, are with that theme in mind. So,
right, every team.
Look, let's put it this way. I was one of the first and most vocal in Broncos country that said that I don't want Justin Simmons on my team. I think he was a selfish person, a me guy. And guess what? Broncos country lambasted me, raked me over the coals. But guess what? When he got cut, he barely had any interest. And now he's floundering around the league after his kind of contract was let to kind of ride out. Fantastic human being.
He's even signed at this point. I think he's still a free agent.
Believe he is. No, and this is what I keep on trying to tell people is that there's a lot of selfish styles of play out there, and a lot of actual football coaches, like the coaches themselves, pull that out and they just blacklist that behavior. They're like, that is not appropriate, because what you don't want on a team is a selfish guy that's looking to stat pad. The quarterback position is a little bit
He's
of the
still a
only
free
exception.
agent.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
he had a
Yeah,
1-year stint with the Falcons, and that was it.
yeah. So, anyways, when you're looking at certain guys, the only exception to that rule is some of the quarterbacks will kind of get that like rogue one-off. But I mean, outside of that, you're done, right? Like even Russell Wilson was stat padding in a lot of the time when he was here in Denver, where he was making really safe throws to try to get his completion percentage up. But when you look at the other stats that actually feed into the quarterback stats, like time held onto the ball and all that kind of stuff, his stats were like absolute dog water. Just brutal. And so, you have to look at the totality of things when you're looking at those statistics in order to stack kind of two or three things together, and they actually make up what would actually be good versus bad. And that's what coaches are doing. Coaches are pulling those stats together, but they're having the data analysis done, not what you're seeing from some of the YouTubers and other folks out there who are just pulling a specific stat and they're saying this guy's amazing. And it's like, no, like coaches are not looking at a 40
You
time
got to
and
watch the
saying,
game.
yeah, they're watching the game and they're actually pulling those things together.
Yeah, where
Um,
fans are just sitting there looking at a box score if they didn't see the game and going, "Oh, this guy had some decent numbers," and didn't see what's actually transpiring.
There is such thing as garbage time.
Right?
Look, Biggie, you'll note that I am willing to hold on to unfavorable opinions amongst folks that are also Broncos fans. Um, and I'm happy to justify them and debate those positions. I'm also in rare air where I don't believe in personal attacks just because I disagree with you or you made a good point. Made a good point. I might even change my opinion. Holy crap, that's a shocker from in today's world. I might actually change my mind. But in terms of the what I see as the right approach here is that I look at the data, I look at the tape, I look at a combination of stats, I look at specific stats, but not just like the nonsense ones, but like I look at totality of those stats, and then I make up my opinion. And if someone else is able to present an actual realistic and solid argument, happy to change my mind and admit that I may have been wrong. But if all you're going to do is say I hate you because you're making me look bad, or you're hurting my ego, or I really like that guy, so or the one that I really love is, so what you're saying is that you think Justin Simmons is awful. It's like, on the football field, yeah. But then what they're really trying to do is they're trying to say that what I'm saying is when I don't like the play on the field, that I'm also saying that I don't like the person, and they're trying to merge those two together. And I just find that intellectually dishonest, and that kind of nonsense needs to stop. But as we're looking ahead and moving on to assessing our rosters and whatnot, I will just say some kind of quick hits and stuff in terms of the Saints game. Yet again, a fantastic outing from Corinne Reed. We also had Jordan Turner, again, looked absolutely fantastic in that game. I'll get to him a little later on in the show. Um, and then what a lot of people haven't been talking about is the rotational offensive line that Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos put on the field in the latter part of games, both in particular, just to be very direct, in second game and third game. So if you look from quarter, I want to say about midway through the third to the end of the fourth, you saw a complete, just like mixed bag rotation of offensive linemen to get a true assessment of depth and where those guys may be decent fits, as well as seeing if they can act as depth on different positions that they may not typically or naturally play. A good example of that was Alex Pazlowski. He is typically a right tackle. He's generally quite good at being a right tackle, although he had some issues in this preseason at the tackle position. And they moved him several times to the interior in the guard position on the right side as well. And frankly, his guard play is what kept him on the roster. And if you look at the Broncos depth chart, he's on our depth chart as the backup right guard. So something to let that sink in
Right.
for those folks. And he also obviously has the flexibility of shifting over to right tackle. I think I'll
Interesting.
leave it there because we're going to start talking about the cut downs and stuff, or maybe this is a decent transition. Well, we'll just kick it off with the Broncos here and the roster cut downs. So I have a few issues. I may as well just get right into it and not beat around the bush, so to speak. Broncos kept 2 quarterbacks. I was not surprised. Neither should anyone else. However, Sam Ehlinger has been on the record for those Broncos fans that have not dug deep into things. He has come on and said that he wanted to come back for the Denver Broncos. And so it would take an offer that really blew him away for the 53-man roster on another team to not come back to Denver. I got the impression that Sam Ehlinger, based on those comments, is really aiming and trying to vie for some form of a coaching position kind of longer term in his career. And I think he's wanting to have the Sean Payton seal of approval and kind of be a little bit of a Bo Nix kind of coach on the field, kind of sideline type guy to work with the coaches. That's my gut reaction. Could be wrong, but that's my initial reaction based upon his comments. He also said that his agent has come out and said that he had at least 3 different offers from other teams to sign to their 53-man roster and turn them down to come back to the Denver
Wow.
Broncos practice squad. So, and in fairness, if you watched how Sam played in the 3rd preseason game there, I'm surprised it wasn't more. I actually thought that you would have more offers in other teams because he really did look good, especially in the last 2 games. First game, not so much. The last 2 games, he had his redemption arc, if you will, where he really showed that he does in fact know how to play the game. So only 2 quarterbacks. And then we get into wide receivers. This is kind of where a lot of people were a little bit surprised. So we had Courtney Jackson, who was a standout through a lot of preseason for Broncos fans. They really liked him. I thought he was mediocre. I thought he had some really he had some splashy plays on punt and kick returns, but he also had some really awful ones. So it kind of cancel in my mind. They kind of cancel one another out. Very similar to what you were saying about your team there, DZ, with the gentleman that had the one really good play and then decided to let a ball hit him in the head twice. You know, sorry, dude. You got one job. Use your hands to catch the ball. Your head, not so good
Right.
at catching a football. You know what I mean? If you're a soccer player, you kind of use your head to try to put the ball in the back of the net. But again, wrong sport. That's why you're cut. So moving onwards and upwards to my Denver Broncos and in our wide receiver room. I do think that if Devon Vele was not traded, and I think this is really where Sean Payton was, is that he had a lot of players that he was concerned were not going to make it through waivers. And I mean legitimately concerned we're not going to make it through waivers and back in our practice squad. And I think some of the cuts that we saw and some of the folks that were there, I think a huge reason for that is that we kept a heavy O-line and heavy D-line because those guys were not going to be able to make it back to our practice squad. And then eventually, once a couple of injuries happened in certain positions, they would obviously be elevated to the 53. But I just think Sean Payton was looking at it saying, we can't lose these guys, and you need depth at those positions because those position groups are really best suited when in rotation. Well, not offensive line, but certainly defensive line. So we have Marvin Mims, Trent Sherfield, Troy Franklin, Cortland Sutton, and Pat Bryant. A lot of Broncos fans, including myself, are thinking that we may have kept Joaquin Davis, although given the fact that I have not seen him sign anywhere to any practice squad or any other team's 53, now that could come out, like you said, tomorrow, where he may have actually been claimed by a team that just hasn't processed through the transactions yet. That could prove to have been a smart decision by Sean Payton, where we might be able to sign him late to the practice squad, or we might be able to maybe even stash him in our back pocket. Hopefully no other team picks him up over the course of the year and sign him to a futures deal. That's another way that you can kind of go about these things. We kept 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 offensive linemen. I was absolutely shocked at that number because normally 7 or 8 is really where you aim for, but we kept 9. Now, DZ, if you remember the last 2 shows, the number one thing I said is that I believe that my team's tackle depth at the swing tackle position and kind of the depth in those offensive tackles and the between the UDFAs and the other guys we have on the roster, I think they're quite good and are trending in that upward trajectory there. And I believe that my team and my coaches agree with me. And in large part because Matt Pert, Alex Pazlowski, and Frank Crum were effectively the 3 tackles that I was referring to when I made that comment. And all 3 are on the 53-man roster.
Nice.
So I truly believe that my head coaches, or the head coach and the other coaches on the roster, are very much in lockstep, where they're looking at this and saying, "All right, you're getting like 30 million left and right tackles on an annualized basis. If you can develop a young guy that's in like the 7th and undrafted kind of free agent class, get them to being like even a serviceable almost starter. I mean, that's worth like a 3rd or 4th round pick all day long."
Yeah.
Right? And so if
Right.
you are
Yep.
able to continue to develop those guys through that kind of churning pipeline, that gives you another means of bolstering your draft capital. And I think the Broncos are certainly looking at that for some of our players.
I honestly think that there's a shortage in quality offensive linemen in the league right now.
Right.
And it could be to like how the league is like moving towards a certain way or another, but definitely a shortage in quality offensive linemen. And that's why it's like, not every team has a good offensive line, or usually a team has like one good guy and then a couple average guys. So,
Yeah.
when we see these teams that have,
The
like
Eagles,
elite
like the Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eagles,
Yeah.
you're just like, it's almost unfair.
Well, you got to think about it too. I mean, number one, you got to be a big man. I mean,
Sure.
genetically wise, you just have to be a big man. And then, after being a big man, you got to be able to show the skill and have the speed in order to
Footwork,
do it. So, I
technique,
mean,
yeah.
it's like tough to find that combination of just pure genetics and getting that skill. There's just not that many human beings. They're like the 1% of the 1%.
And you've got to be coachable as well. You got to be coachable. Like size is one thing, but can't teach size, but got to be coachable.
Well, you
So
look at a lot of these offensive linemen. They're anywhere. I mean, getting as small as like a center, about 6'3" is probably about almost the smallest. What's up, Willie Wayne? And I say a salute to everyone else out here in a minute. But these guys are like 6'8", 6'9". I'll even take like a Dalton Wagner. The Raiders got a couple years ago, UDFA, paid him the most amount of money for a UDFA and has not seen a single game. And the guy's like 6'9". He's the same as Joe All. So it's like you can be big, but you got to have the ability though too. I mean, it's just hard to find that stuff.
yeah,
I agree. And so that kind of brings me a little bit to the other reason why I think my Broncos kept so many offensive linemen. I made a comment. I don't know if I made it on X or if I made it just in a group chat or a couple group chats. But truth be told, I actually think Alex Forsyth played better at the center position than Luke Wattenberg did.
Hmm.
And Luke Wattenberg is our current starting center. And so I actually think that some of the reasons why we kept the offensive linemen in terms of the numbers that we did is that some of the guys just aren't playing all that well and didn't really play that well at the starters in the preseason. And I think that they just didn't want to let go some of these guys
they didn't want him
because
to get poached.
it's just such a valuable
Right.
position group that they just wanted to keep these dudes on the roster and give themselves some options. And frankly, I kind of don't blame them. You know what I
I
mean?
think
I think
it's
it's a smart move.
O line and cornerbacks. Like I guess you could say secondary, but I wouldn't really put safety in there, even though they're just as important. But like
Yeah.
offensive linemen and cornerbacks right now are worth their weight in gold in the NFL, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah. Tight end, we kept 4, which is a bit of a surprise. I think a lot of folks thought we'd only keep 3. I think the bigger surprise actually was that Nate Atkins did not get placed on the short-term IR. there was certainly discussions, and I certainly thought that way, and I think everyone else in Broncos country felt the same way, that with
Well, what
his
was his injury?
Yeah,
So for
what
the
happened
fans
to
that
him?
don't know,
he had a foot injury where he had some cleanup surgery and stuff like that
Hmm.
done on it, and the thought process was is that he wouldn't be back until about week 4. So they were just like, why waste the roster spot? Why not just like keep him on the short term IR, and then maybe give like a young guy some extra chances, like a Prescorn, for example, or someone else. Lucas Kroll made the 53-man roster. He was a guy that I would have been a happy man if I didn't see him on my team again. He had a pretty good preseason in his credit, so I have to give him credit where credit's due. He came in, worked hard, did the things, and frankly, like earned a spot with his play on the field. So
and
I
what
understand
position
that's
did
the
he
case.
play?
Tight
Because
end.
I'm sure I just know, like I know my Raider fans out here don't know who he is and what position.
end.
So help just set the light up for those guys.
Tight end.
He's a blocking tight end, right?
Nope, pass catcher for the most part.
Kroll? Lucas Kroll is?
Yeah, he's not. He's not.
Wow.
He is an underwhelming pass blocker.
Who am I thinking of then?
You're thinking Troutman.
Maybe.
Well, there's Troutman, and then there's Nate Atkins. So Nate Atkins was the guy I was talking about before. He's
Okay.
primarily an inline pass blocker, and like an inline blocker, and he's also one of those tight end fullback hybrid type guys. And they were putting him in that fullback role at the end of last season.
That's probably what I'm thinking of.
But Nate Atkins is also one of those real sneaky dudes in the passing game. He's got more passing yards than you think he does. You know what I mean? Like those one of those like fullback kind of tight end dudes that you're just like, wait a minute, he had 600 yards or 500 yards of cat. Like, okay, kind of creepy. Like in terms of like you just didn't. It was like little chunk plays throughout the game, but they all added up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's good, man.
Yeah.
That's great
Yeah.
for those guys.
And then you have J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, Jaleel McLaughlin, and my man Tyler Bade, who made the 53-man roster. I had a funny feeling he was going to make the 53. I just think he's too good not to. Literally too good not to. I did call it. The answer was you could never let him go. Arguably, he's a better running back overall than Jaleel McLaughlin. And in addition to that, he is a better pass pro guy than RJ Harvey is at this stage in his career. And it may not be ever where RJ Harvey is as good as Tyler Bade in pass pro. So it's just, there's certain things in an NFL running back that you need to have. Also, Tyler Bade is the third string punt returner on my team as well. So he has some special teams value as well. So that is also why he made the roster. The Denver Broncos defense, which is looking pretty scary on paper, at least. They did pretty well during preseason, although I'm really looking forward to see once schemes, like you're actually scheming the other team with the guys we have on the roster, because I think that's where they're going to really shine. I'm going to skip over inside linebacker and just simply cover all the other position groups, because the inside backer position is where I'm pretty pissed. Zach Allen, Savion Jones, DJ Jones, and Malcolm Roach, John Franklin Myers, Jordan Jackson, and Awazarike. And if you think I'm pronouncing that first name, you have another thing coming. Wazarike is the guy that got caught in that little gambling thing. He's a 2022 fourth round draft pick. He actually looked quite good in preseason. He had a couple decent plays where he was really kind of holding his own. Showed that he was making some progress, which is what he had not shown in previous years. Jordan Jackson continued to really show out. And between those two guys, Broncos country was saying, Peyton's only picking one because you're not going to have room on the roster. Mm-hmm. And instead, we went light in other positions in order to keep both. And so, to the Broncos' credit, they are definitely valuing the trenches now. Thank goodness, because that's what I've been claiming and pounding.
I think everybody is. I think that Eagles Super Bowl woke everybody up. Everybody's like, "Oh snap! Here we,
Yeah, but I mean,
right?
Gotta pay attention.
I've been saying that kind of stuff though before the Eagles made the Super Bowl on the show and on my other show as well.
Sure.
Just like the offensive line and defensive line.
It all starts with the trenches. That's where it all starts. So I'm just kind of curious. So Richie, you said, you went light. I'm sure, your defense is deep. Where did you guys go light since, you went heavier here?
Well, we kind of went in the cornerback position. I mean, you could have gone too deep at each spot. Instead, we kind of only went one deep in one of them as like kind of the position groups. We also went 5 wide receivers rather than 6 or 7. So a lot of other teams are going 6 and 7, and we went 5. And then we went 2 quarterbacks rather than 3 because they changed that third string quarterback rule from the practice squad. So you don't have that anymore. You don't get the emergency QB from the practice squad this year. You basically would need to carry the third quarterback on the roster. So that's kind of a bit of a gut punch. And Sean Payton is not a fan of that. He really would prefer kind of that emergency QB from the practice squad, just be able to just be called up anyway. I think they're probably going to change that back because I think too many teams are going to be in the Sean Payton kind of way of thinking. But nonetheless, you're going to need that extra roster spot, or you could have used that extra roster spot on that third quarterback, which could have been that emergency quarterback on the 53 that you could pull up. And that's why so many teams this year have 3 on their rosters. And then you got some other position groups, like, for example, I mean, basically where we went light is in some of the skill positions, and on the tweener positions, like the safeties. So safeties, we went lighter on in terms of numbers than we did last year. Wide receivers, we went lighter on than we did last year, and then that enabled us to keep those extra offensive and defensive linemen.
Man, it's crazy. That's exactly what my team did too. Exactly the same thing.
Now,
was yours the same way, DZ?
No.
Here's my problem, and I have a big problem with this. So I agree with keeping defensive line depth because those positions are expensive, right? Like good D linemen are very expensive, and they will definitely put you over the cap. Like, I mean, good ones, not average. Good ones will start putting you over the cap. Yeah. And so that really is a disadvantage for your team. And then. So I have no problem with that, but where I really have an issue with is outside linebackers. I thought that we could have tried to keep and maybe trade someone as like trade bait. I thought Farmer played really well for us, and it would have been great to see if we might be able to trade him. Although I did hear rumors that we didn't have interest, but I haven't heard anyone like really truly confirm it. So for our outside linebackers, and that was like this is another really deep, like depth wise in our room. So we have Jonathan Cooper, Jonah Ellis, and then the left on the left side you have Nick Benito, Dondre Tillman, and Q Robinson. I'm still in a maybe a rare air group of folks in Broncos country that actually wants us to trade Nick Benito for like tremendous draft capital. And promote Jonah Ellis based on his play in the preseason and last year. I just think that today, as we stand right now, Jonah Ellis's production.
You want to strike when the stove is hot, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to get max, reward for
Yes,
I get it.
And that's not a knock on Nick Benito. I think he started off not good. Okay, like I'm going to call it for what it is. I was really hard on him. I thought he sucked the first year, and I thought he was mediocre the second year. He really did start improving in that third and now fourth year. So good for him. Credit where credit's due. But I'm just looking at that and saying we saw one good year from Nick Benito, like truly one good year, which was last year. I want to see another good year from him personally. And then I'm looking at the depth in behind him. Jonah Ellis, you have Dondre Tillman, and then Q Robinson started looking good in preseason too, where he started to make those like kind of Jonah Ellis kind of like leaps as well, where he was getting into the backfield all the time. And so if you have this depth coming in behind a guy, does it make sense to continually to pay these outside backers 20 and 30 million if you can get 80% production from one guy and then rotate these other guys in and get the remainder and keeping your cost lower. Like that's what I'm saying. There's an argument, in my opinion, to be made where you're able to kind of still yield the same production just through a committee rather than a single player.
Yep.
And Richie, I will say this, just a little bit of a pushback, just because Raider Nation's not going to like what I'm going to say here. I've gotten conversations with a lot of guys out there. So just really quickly, then I'll say it. So salute Sierra, Chewy, Emac, Daddy 99, Furpo, Victory, Big E, Ed Winchell, Stoffel the Badger, Moval Raider, and Willie Wayne. So salute. Glad all you guys are in the chat. Good to see you all. So this was my thing. When you shop at the Dollar Tree, what do you get quality wise? Is you get $1. And one of my favorite players this whole off season that the Raiders lost, and I know Nabman's going to say something about this, but I do disagree with a lot of Raider fans that when they let Spill Lane go, who was their best linebacker, and yes, they were able to sign 3 linebackers to do the same job that he's doing. Yes, it's great because if he's injured or something like that, then you know what? You got multiple dudes. You got multiple guys. But at the same time, I can't see any of the guys that they signed as a 3-down linebacker for my Raiders. So, or I'll say the Raider Nation. So it's like I could see it both ways. And yeah, I mean, it's like I saw a lot of linebackers like Devin White. He can play against the run. The linebacker that they got from Pittsburgh, play against the run. And then, even, signing the safety that they got, and I'm just drawing a mental blank. I was so sorry, guys. But
no worries.
No, it's like, what's his name? Dude, give me a half sec. I got it up here. And he used to be Jamal Adams, who they moved over to linebacker. So it's like, I look at these guys. Yes, you got some cheaper dudes, but there's a reason why they're cheaper at this point. Yeah, and we lost a 3-down linebacker that I thought was pretty good against pass coverage and run coverage. So you're losing that on every single snap.
Yep.
So you can be targeted. So there is a give and take. You got it. There's a give and take to it all.
Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly finish off the defense there, and then I'll pass it off to you, Jack, and then we'll finish off with these. Oh, sorry, we'll go pass it off to DZ, and then we'll finish off with your Las Vegas Raiders, Jack. So that's our D line, and then we have our outside backers there, which I am quite pleased with in terms of the depth there. I think that each and every one of those guys can be true contributors on the team, and I think you're going to see production from those guys because I think each and every one of them has the skill set to kind of do what you're looking for from your outside backers, especially in a pass rush scenario. I also want to give credit where credit's due. Jonah Ellis is showing to be a complete outside linebacker that includes run defense. That dude is looking legit special as far as I'm concerned. And I highly recommend that folks pay attention to Jonah Ellis on my Denver Broncos this coming season, because I think you're going to see a pretty special year from him. Now, moving over to the cornerback position, which that's really it's got to be the strength of my Denver Broncos, despite those other players that I just listed. I mean, it's got to be. So we have Pat Surtain coming off defensive player there in terms of his play on the field, and that's well deserved, and frankly should not have come as a surprise to anybody. The dude absolutely killed it last year. His stats were ridiculous.
QB just avoid him.
Yeah,
we're not throwing that way.
Yeah. And that's another thing, right? Which is some people say, well, his stats weren't great. It's like, yeah, but now look at the stats where the other team didn't even throw in his direction, like at all. They said, what side is he on? Other way.
Yeah.
Right. Perfect.
Jack, you're muted, buddy.
I know. I'm looking forward to it because now we don't have to hear him. No, just kidding. And then we have.
Sorry, guys. I was just saying, he's the only one I ever saw that shut down Brock Bowers, man. He is a bad man. He's a bad man. He's scary.
Yes, he really is. He's he had Brock Bowers on lockdown, like done. um, and Brock Bowers is a legit player. Like he's not he's going to be special. So to have someone that can actually counter that on your team is pretty impressive. Then we have Riley Moss, Chris Abrams-Drain, who again he's a fan favorite and he's been playing real well, like to his like really really well. And then we have Jade Barron and Jaquan McMillan. So literally our backup nickelback on our team is a starting caliber nickelback on a good percentage of rosters.
Dude, he'd be a starting nickelback on my team. Tell you
Yeah.
that.
So like that's the depth that the Broncos have at the cornerback position. Also keep in mind that your corners can typically also play. I agree, Victory Lap. He is. Oh, sorry. I agree. So many people just overlook him just because of how well Riley Moss looked in the limited play. He was hurt, but he when he was on the field, he actually looked very good. And then obviously Pat Surtain kind of steals the show. But a lot of people just underrate the quality of Chris Abrams-Drain, and I think he's another one that a lot of folks are going to say, "Oh, good, the backup's in," and they're going to be like, "Wait a minute, that backup is
He's just as good.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it'll make a lot of people curse. I think just in terms of like, wait a minute, that's the dude that isn't starting.
I'm
Oh, that's
excited
a
to see
problem.
Jade Barron in
Yeah,
his rookie year to see what he
yeah,
does against some of these good
Oh, I liked
receivers.
him. Yeah, I am too.
yeah, and then again, we have a very strong safety room as well in for the Denver Broncos. I'm happy with the guys we kept. I thought we kept the right guys on the team, and I thought they're in the right positions. So we have Hufanga and Brandon Jones as starters, who are going to be one heck of a tandem to start the season with for my Denver Broncos. And then backing up those two is PJ Locke, who was a very serviceable backup in the NFL. And I'm looking forward to see what he's going to look like now that he has his back surgery over and done with, and he's actually looking quite good on the field. That surprised me, and you guys might remember I predicted that he was going to have to retire. The injury that he had repaired was a disc issue in his back. And for a defensive player that is very physical and basically gets into a car crash almost every game, multiple times a game, for that matter, for him to be able to come back and play as well as he has in the preseason is rather remarkable, and he deserves credit where credit's due. I do want to make just one general public comment here: is PJ, you seem like a really good dude and you put in the work to get to where you're at. I really hope that you're not pushing yourself to play either A, to just prove a point, or B, just for a paycheck. Because if you're continuously doing more damage now to your back after surgery and your body isn't been able to fully recover, I really don't want you to get hurt and just have a really poor quality of life after football, because there is life after football. And so I'm truly genuinely concerned for his well-being given the injury. So I just really hope that he isn't, putting himself in a bad spot. But aside from that, I'm happy to have him on the team if he's healthy and good to go and all that kind of stuff. Because I think he's going to now have a bit of a rebound year for my Denver Broncos. And then just to kind of quickly round out that room, we have Devin Key, who again is no slouch either, although he is certainly a step down from those other three. And then JL Skinner. JL Skinner is a special teams ace. He is not that good at his position at safety, but he's getting better. And
So as long as you can contribute on special teams, hey, that's what matters.
but
If you
he's a
can't make the
special teams
roster
ace.
from doing the position,
Yeah,
gotta do it on
he's a
special
special
teams.
teams ace and a gunner. So he's a great gunner for my Denver Broncos on special teams. And so that's really where he's fit his role. Now, I've gone through all the position groups. I've intentionally saved one for last. I'm pissed. Like, I mean, like
Okay.
legitimately angry. This is the one that just like I 4-letter words. Let me tell you. All right,
I'm going to guess who it's for. It starts with T, right?
T. No,
Oh, no? Okay. I
no.
thought the player you're going to get mad about is started with the
So
T.
so we got Dre Greenlaw and Alex Singleton. Those are
Hmm.
our starters. I question where they're at fully health wise, and they've proven
Hmm.
that injury or get injured from time to time, at least miss a little bit of time. So when you're dealing with this position group, I think it's better for the Broncos to treat this as a committee of four, like four solid starting caliber running or inside backers,
Sure.
just to make sure that you're not overworking Greenlaw so that you keep him healthy because you want him to ball out for the entirety of the season and hopefully deep into the playoffs. And then Alex Singleton typically doesn't get hurt that often, but is starting to show those signs where he's getting these like little minor injuries now the last 2 seasons where he's like missed a game but then come right back. So I want to make sure that we're not pushing Singleton, who I don't think is going to be with us much past this season, if I'm going to be honest. But I really do like him, and
Wow. I
he's
like
the
it.
dude. He's the dude that you look at to say, what is a football player supposed to look like and what are they supposed to do? You're basically pointing at a guy like Alex Singleton.
Right? It's like, when
Yeah.
I watch your Broncos, there's only certain players I really try to keep an eye on, and Singleton is one of them. So,
Yeah. So now we get into where my real issue is. Justin Strnad.
Hmm.
Look, seems like a good dude. We brought him back. He's a decent special teams player. Obviously, he is well liked in the team and by the coaches. That's fine. Nothing against him. I'm not saying that he's like a bad guy or I don't like the guy. I'm just saying I think his play on the field is just not good. And the way I'm looking at it is this, and I did kind of cover this off briefly last show, and I think it's important to kind of bring it up again. If you have Justin Strnad, who is a 2020 fifth round draft pick and is playing, say, at this level, and you have an undrafted free agent in Jordan Turner who's playing at that level, rookie veteran player at this point, and you got the rookie playing at the same level as the veteran player, and you get this guy at the undrafted free agent price of like a rounding error of a salary for your team. You go with this dude all day long and you cut this guy loose and say thank you so long and thanks for all the fish. Why? For the same reason I called out the comment from Raider Zach earlier there, Jack, which is you should always be looking to try to make your team better. So if I have
right?
a vet and a rookie that are playing at the same level, I have far more potential to make my roster better with the rookie that's playing at the same level as that vet. And in my opinion, Turner is that dude. He's on our practice squad, so thank goodness he made it through other teams and we were able to bring him back. But
There
he
was
was
a
playing that well.
Richie. There was an NFL player. I think he's a Steeler right now. He said something like, "Would you, because you're talking about the vet and some of these rookies and such," and he was like, "Would you rather have a Rolls Royce with 100,000 miles on it, or would you want a 2025 BMW that is going to work and every day from here on out, right?" And it's like it's kind of one of those things. It's like that Rolls Royce sure does look nice, but it's got a lot of wear and tear on it. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes these teams they go for that lesser but newer thing, and it's kind of this, because you were seeing this weekend, or not this weekend, the last few days, we saw a ton of vets get cut. You know what I mean? And you're just like, what the hell's going on? Why is he getting cut? And this guy's making it over him. And I'll get into that with my team, but
Well,
And
I actually know why that happened, though. I can explain why those veteran vets stuck around. So maybe we'll cover that when you get into it with your team and stuff.
yeah,
But
my
maybe
question is, for
sorry.
this
Let's quickly.
undrafted. Oh, just real quick on this to get a tiebreaker going. So if they're playing at the same level right now, I mean, which player do you see? I mean, there's always the upside to the player, right? There's the floor, there's the ceiling. I mean, just comparing these two players because I don't know them. So what do you see as then the ceiling versus the floor for each one of these guys? Is it the same or?
No. So Strnad has already hit his ceiling. He has nowhere else to go. I don't believe he's going to get better, and I don't believe he can get better. He has hit his absolute upper max. He's a tweener at the position. He's too slow to cover properly and too small to tackle soundly in real pressure situations. He'll give you a couple splash plays that make you wonder if he can do it over and over again. But then for the overwhelming majority of the time, the dude just makes mistakes, takes bad tackling angles, and does not do what you want him to do. But he's great on special teams because all he's got to do is run in his straight vertical lines and then hit a guy. So, well, he's a linebacker, so, he can hit a guy for sure. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of his MO and has been for, probably like the last decade. Right? So that's fine. But when you're looking at a guy like Turner, well, Turner has already got he's a tackling machine in the preseason. He was all over the field. He's a guy that's like a younger dude that could really learn from a veteran, as Raider Shield family pointed out, from a veteran like an Alex Singleton to learn that type of style of play and that type of role. And he could easily be a dude that fits into like a long-term plan of even maybe starting next year, or at least coming close to starting next year, maybe as your kind of number 3 in that room. And then that also gets me to another guy here, which is Lavelle Bailey. Lavelle Bailey had an absolute stellar preseason for my Denver Broncos at the inside backer position, and did not even make the 53, and I haven't seen him back on the practice squad. It just doesn't make any sense. Like there's a few, each of our teams had those like kind of cuts that I don't understand. Like, I don't get it. And
right.
Lavelle Bailey was that guy for me. And then, just when you look at Dre Greenlaw and Singleton's injury history, and then you look at Corinne Reed and then Justin Strnad, Reed earned that roster spot. That dude killed it throughout the entirety of preseason. He was also one of the hardest priority UDFAs for my team to sign. And frankly, he showed that he has the character to be I'm going to prove to you as a team why you didn't make a mistake. You know what I mean? Like, you want a guy like that. You want Jack, you're kind of referring to some of the guys on your team. You want the lunch pail guys. You want the dude that's coming in every day, first dude in the building, last guy to leave, and just motor 100%. That's Corinne Reed. That's who he is, and that's who we're getting. And so when you're talking about ceiling and future and improving your roster and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sure DZ and Jack, I'm sure you kind of agree with this general statement, which is I would rather keep a younger guy that is playing at the same level as a vested vet when they have had to learn so much in such a short period of time. The game will only slow down and get easier for them. The problem that I have is that so many teams are so starstruck with these kind of like longer term mediocre players. And the reason why I'm so allergic to that as an approach is that was what I constantly saw with my Denver Broncos when we were losing forever. In that massive stretch there after Super Bowl 50, the Broncos just kept on to guys because they were good dudes, or they did the right thing, or
we got some of those guys right now, Richie.
Yeah, whatever the case may be.
There's a lot of teams that have that same approach, but at the same time, you got to look at it. It's like if you get too many of those young cats that they look good, but have they proven themselves yet? No, not yet. We all want to give them that chance, but when you're a general manager or a head coach, the NFL stands for not for long, right? So it's like a lot of times these guys will go for what's safe versus what could be a cheaper, better option if it's not all there. You know what I mean? If they have question marks on it. So,
well, Jack, my point here is that we already
I'm not
have
arguing. I agree.
Yeah, but what I am saying though is that for those that are saying yes, but you need the veteran presence in the locker room to like keep all these young guys in check and blah blah blah. Cool, no problem. Well, guess what? Dre Greenlaw is a veteran. Alex Singleton is a veteran who has been both in the CFL, NFL, multiple teams, and done very well in all of his stints, right? So the Broncos have veterans in each position group that can kind of corral the group and keep them all on track. What you need after that is you need those young, hungry guys to try to overthrow those veterans to try to say, I want that job now. And that's the only way that you get better. In fact, that's Pete Carroll's MO. Like that's what he did in
right?
Seattle. Like
Well,
that's
that's
how
why
he
we have
operated
the
his team.
practice squad, because you
Yeah.
know some of these young cats that have been practicing with the teams. Unless you got to remember, so if another team really wants to sign one of these guys, they got to go to the active roster. And if you're comfortable with the players that are out there, then maybe you're not going to sign it that particular player. Wait, if someone gets hurt, then you're going to pluck them off, the practice squad, and then bring them to your regular roster. The eyeballs are still going to be on these younger kids.
Yeah.
But it is like when your job's on the line and that's you're making money for family, it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. So DZ, that's kind of where my roster sits. Just a few quick. Oh, Lavelle Bailey did get re-signed to the practice squad, so that's good. So we did bring him back. That's fantastic. That's a recent one that I just saw there. Just a few quick little rundown pieces. Adam Prentice, for those of you who do not recognize the name, I mentioned him last week on the show. I promise you're going to want to pay attention to that name for my Denver Broncos. He is a fullback. He is an animal. Just make a note. Trust me, he will be active in our game one, I think, against the Titans. He is a beast. He's the fullback I wanted, like when Sean Payton was still with the New Orleans Saints. Sean Payton poached him from my team over to the Saints and absolutely killed it with him in New Orleans. Caleb Lohner was re-signed to the practice squad. He is the 6'8", 6'7", somewhere in that range basketball player playing tight end. Sam Ellinger, as I already discussed earlier in the show, made a point of re-signing with my Denver Broncos and turning down 53-man roster opportunities, which is wild. And then just a few other kind of quick pieces here. Courtney Jackson rejected the Broncos practice squad offering and decided to go to a different team. I guess when you play well and don't get selected, you are in some cases bitter. And then we have another guy, Jordan Turner, who I just discussed earlier. He is also back on the practice squad. But Diza, just before I throw over to you and give you the time to go over your roster cuts and everything else, another thing to keep in mind as why vested vets were cut and some of these young guys were kept. Vested vets are allowed to not pass through waivers rather. Sorry, Jack, your shirt's distracting.
Try,
you got to stop it. You got to stop it. Floridian slip. It'll never happen again, I promise. But in terms of vested veterans, they do not need to go through waivers. And so other teams cannot poach them. You have first crack to bring them back on the practice squad. And so as an example, my Denver Broncos did that with Adam Prentice, Calvin Throckmorton, and Sam Ellinger. All three of those guys are vested vets, and we were just able to just bring them right back onto the practice squad without having them pass through waivers. One other thing, just in terms of trying to figure out why certain teams did certain things this year differently from others. Remember, this year, as I said on last week's show, first year that the NFL has allowed for players to not be mandated, to go on your 53 and then be sent to short-term IR. So you saw a little bit more flexibility in terms of how these 53-man rosters were created as a result of that. Take it away.
Thank you, Richie. I don't know if I'll go that in depth with the Chargers as you did with the Broncos, but we'll see. I'll start with some of the bad. And Chargers made some puzzling decisions, and who knows what goes on behind the scenes, because I think we got to remember that, there's three sides to a team, right? You've got offense, defense, and special teams. So there's a lot of factors going on. And I think this year, our special teams coach finally was like, hey, man, throw me a bone. Like, because, I can't just work and duct tape everything to make this work. rightfully so. Special teams can win or lose you a game. And we
Right.
saw throughout preseason a lot of special teams follies and fumbles, and a lot of weird stuff, a lot of muff punts, man. I don't remember seeing as many muff punts from my guys on special teams ever. But anyways, they released Raheem Sanders, who they gave guaranteed money to. He was a UDFA out of South Carolina, and they released him after him having a really good preseason behind arguably one of the worst offensive lines in preseason was the Chargers' backups offensive lines, the 2s and 3s, probably one of the worst in the whole freaking league this preseason. He had 27 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 receptions for 28 yards. And the way this guy runs is just, you're not bringing him down on first contact. A stud. And if you look into the guys that you have on the team, some of the signings, the vet signings, and it's easy to think like, okay, this guy is a future with Hampton. Well, the Chargers played chicken, and they released him, and what happened? He got picked up. He was the only running back to get picked up on waivers by the Cleveland Browns, and I'll just say the fan base is pissed off about that. You guys effed around and you found out, and he is now going to be. He's probably going to be the right now with what's going on with the Browns with Judkins and stuff. He could be a starter. He could be in that number 2 role with them. So we'll see. Good luck to them. And I mean, Dog Pound. We didn't want him waived, so there's that. And then they also released Tony Jefferson. Now, he's a fan favorite, especially among the Chargers, because he's active on social media, and he's a longtime vet. I believe this is his 11th year, and he's a vet, so he doesn't go on to waivers. He becomes a free agent essentially. And thank God today they signed him to the practice squad. So I think there was kind of this behind the scenes deal. But, they had a guy named Kendall Williamson. They picked him over him, and everybody was like, who, what? And then you look into it, and this guy is that 2025 BMW I kind of made reference to earlier in the show. So they cut a lot of guys, but they seem to have, got them all back, which I was kind of hoping that they would have picked up some of these other guys from other teams, but it's almost like they've picked up their whole, almost all the guys they had in preseason. They got them all back on the practice squad.
DZ, was there a player that your team cut and you were like nervous? Like you were nervous that, man, someone else is going to pick them up off waivers or just go somewhere else?
Yeah, I just said that, Jack. I just said it was Raheem Sanders, Rocket,
okay.
and Tony Jefferson, a safety. I mean, Tony Jefferson was probably preseason MVP, like at safety. This guy is, first of all, I'm watching him out there, and I'm like, what are you doing out there in preseason? But then I get it. Like, you need guys to fill in, and he didn't come into the league last season in the best of shape, but he made a point coming into this season that he was going to be in the best shape he can be in, and he was. But I mean, I was like, what the F is going on in LA? But they got him back in practice squad, and I think the Chargers are playing a lot of gymnastics. They are going to be bringing guys up and putting them down and doing all this stuff, because also in that last game with the Rams or the Niners, we lost our long snapper, Josh Harris, who's arguably probably the best long snapper in the league right now. And we lost him for 4 weeks. They had to put him on IR. And we do have an emergency backup, and that's Tucker Fisk, our blocking tight end, fullback guy. And I was not comfortable going into Sao Paulo, Brazil with a, fullback tight end being a long snapper. So luckily today, I guess, it kind of slipped under the radar. They signed the Eagles' longtime long snapper. He was with them from like 2017 to 24. So it's kind of weird. That guy's like a free agent. He's like, oh yeah, I'm available. I know I'm only going to be here for 4 weeks essentially. So they got that covered. So thank goodness on that. Rick Lovato, by the way, never heard of him, but he's got 9 years in the league. Let's go to the depth chart. I'll go to the depth chart, but also 10 rookies made the 53, and it's 10, and then it shifted to 9, but 3 UDFA guys made the 53, so that's really cool. Marlo Wax, talked about, big fan of his. He was the 8th best linebacker in preseason this year. He had a grade of 79.7 PFF. A lot of other stats I can go through. Nico Reed, cornerback, another guy that made it. He had an 88.3 PFF grade. He had a 91.1 coverage grade.
Wow.
3 catches allowed on 10 targets for 16 yards, 3 passes defended, an interception, and QB's had a 33 passer rating throwing his way. This guy's a 5'9" dude too. So, playing with a lot of the heart, right? And then the other guy that made it was another standout cornerback, Eric Rogers. But that guy got hurt against the Rams. He had a pick. This guy has got it. You just turn on the tape and we were watching him, and I don't expect any of you guys to have watched what Chargers fans are doing when they're watching these guys. But he looks the part. He looks like he can be a starting corner in the league. But he got hurt, went in a boot. He got the game ball and everything. And they originally had him make the 53, which we were like, it's a feel-good story. And then he gets thrown on IR and they re-sign a guy in Delshon Phillips, a special team guy from the Houston Texans they signed earlier this season. So they signed this guy in the offseason, Delshon Phillips from the Houston Texans. He misses most of camp, almost like the most of the preseason as well. And then they cut him. And we're like, well, there goes that money, right? You just spent all this money on this guy. And Eric Rogers gets thrown on IR, and they re-sign Delshon Phillips. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that us fans don't see or the beat reporters see. But I will go to the depth chart.
Yeah, I just went to your depth chart, and I'm counting Rashawn Slater, Josh Fagwa, Junior Colson, Dean Leonard, Jordan, I can't even pronounce his last name, Jalen Jones, and then your long snapper, Josh Harris. So 8 guys? So I think that's got to be a direct result of why you got so many young guys on your squad right now.
Okay, so you're talking about the guys that were, yeah, I know who you're talking.
They're on IR. It's like, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of dudes being on IR. So I can see, because there's so many guys out there that are hurt.
Yeah, so the 2 guys, there's Jordan Aludacon and Josh Fuga. He's an USO. Those guys are rooks, right? And then Josh Harris and Dean Leonard, they're going to come back sometime, right? So some of these guys that I said made the team, they made the team for probably a short term, right? And then they'll probably get thrown down to practice squad. But Dean Leonard and Josh Harris, they'll be back in probably 4 weeks. And then the surprising thing that happened, and he was one of my guys when we had our My Guy segment, is Junior Colson. He had a really shitty rookie season last year, and I thought he was going to be a breakout this year. And no, that's further from the case. And that's probably why Marlo Wax made the team, is Junior Colson got put on IR. He got hurt, and then we were like, oh, okay, he's fine. He just got banged up. And, we kind of joke around like this guy's looking like a bust and whatnot. And no, man, he got thrown on IR, and he's going to go have shoulder surgery. season-ending IR. So it's a shame for him. This is 2 wasted years essentially for him, And this guy was, quote unquote, a scheme fit Michigan guy, knew the system, and his introduction to the NFL has been nothing but, bad for him. So he still does have 2 more years. We'll see how it goes next season, but you got to move on. You can't dwell on this kind of crap. And let's get. I'm going to get back to the depth chart real quick. They carried two quarterbacks, Justin Herbert and Trey Lance. Trey Lance, I don't know if Harbaugh's a quarterback whisperer or what, but Trey Lance everywhere else looked horrible. Comes to LA and looks like he can be a serviceable guy. If Justin goes down and you got to play Trey for a game or two, I'm not going to say I'm super confident, but I'd be okay with it. And then we'll go to tight ends. Will Dissly, pass blocker. Tyler Conklin, the guy they signed in the offseason. Tucker Fisk, who now I guess I know is an emergency long snapper. He's our tight end fullback kind of hybrid guy. They really seem to like him. And then our rookie, Arande Gaston, who's showing a lot of promise. And then let's see, for receivers, we are carrying, which looks like only 6 receivers, but only I say that, but that seems probably normal. Ladd, Keenan, Trey Harris, Quentin Johnson, Darius Davis, and Keandre Lambert-Smith. We did also have, I forgot to say, we had another guy who got put on waivers and got picked up, and that was Delvon Campbell, who I thought would have been a great guy to have on the practice squad because he's got those prototypical X tools, and he got picked up by the Carolina Panthers. So good luck to him. Let's see who else. Scott Matlock, fullback, made it. And then here's where it's interesting. They're keeping 3 running backs on the team, and it's Najee Harris, Omarion Hampton, and Hassan Haskins. And why I say that's interesting is Harris has been essentially, I don't want to say MIA because he's been at the facility, but we all know what happened July 4th, right? Nobody's seen this eye or whatever it is. I think if you're looking at me, it's this eye. And today he practiced for the first time, non-contact in jersey, but he's out there practicing, and it's a huge possibility that he's playing week 1 against the Chiefs in what I believe is 8 days. So super surprising and catching everybody off guard. But hey, I'm all for it, man. And right now it's the Triple H. It's Harris, Hampton, and Haskins. They're all over 6 foot. 200. The lightest guy is 220 pounds. So it's a big running back room. And then they did keep Kamani Vidal, and they did keep Miller Hines. They're on the practice squad, so they've got these little gadget backs on the practice squad. Let me get back up to there.
Sorry, just to jump in there on your running backs. Is
that your wet dream?
That's what I want on a roster, is that you want to be able to have your 1A and your 1B at the running back position to effectively be, I don't want to say interchangeable, because there's always going to be one of them that's just a little bit better than the other or whatever the case may be. But you want them to be, you don't want to bring in another running back and be like, oh, all you're doing is going to run the ball because that dude can't pass pro. Right? Yeah. You don't want to have a running back that's basically showing your hand. You need to have at least a modestly well-rounded running back that allows you to do different things. And so that was actually what my issue was, and why I thought that Blake Watson might make the 53-man roster for my team, even over Jaleel McLaughlin, for example. Jaleel McLaughlin ultimately made the team, but that's Jaleel's issue, is that he is a subpar pass pro guy just because he doesn't have the weight. Like he's not like 5'9" or 5'10" and 220. He's lighter. He's a lighter dude, and the problem with those lighter dudes is that they can't hold up against these bigger interior or even outside linebackers coming on the defensive line. They
I
just
mean,
can't hold up.
I saw some of that this preseason from numerous teams. It's these lighter backs, and they're probably playing with some of the backup O linemen, but they were going down first contact, man.
Yeah, they're
First
trying.
contact.
They're trying,
Yeah.
but like the dude has him by like 100 pounds.
One of the guys who
So,
I was kind of hoping we'd get because I didn't think we were going for Hampton was Scadaboo. I watched him play, and anytime he was touched, he was going down, and I was like,
Really? That was like
yeah,
his big thing. He was a big power back, so
yeah,
that's supposed to
man.
be like one of the better things is be able to go through tackles. So it's kind of like I agree with both what you guys are saying in the way of pass pro. It's like McCormick, who's been on our practice squad for the Raiders, Raider Nation for the last couple of years. He comes in, he plays well, gets hurt. Now he comes back, and now he's cut, and he's not brought back to the practice squad because I think that plays a huge part. If you can't block, you're not going to keep your job.
I agree, 100%. And one reason I think Haskins got this is because he can also play special teams as well. He's got a role in special teams, and as far as I know, all three of these guys can pass block as well. But this is where it gets annoying for me: is Haskins and Harris are free agents next year. So, like I said earlier, the Chargers played chicken with Rocket Sanders, and they lost him to the Browns, who I would have thought would have been a great pairing with Omarion Hampton and Sanders for the foreseeable future. You got both these guys on rookie contracts, and you got the fifth year with Hampton. So I think they're really regretting what they did there, and I'm still pissed and ticked off about it, to be honest with you. But what am I going to do? I'm not going to cry about it. All right, and then starting offensive line. I really still feel like the Chargers need to do something before week 1, and whether that's a trade, if they can, maybe another trade or a waiver or something. I really think they need to bring in another guard, to be
A
honest with you.
guard, or do you need a right tackle at this point?
No, not a right tackle.
Is it Pimpkins? Pimpkins is right now the right tackle.
So Pipkins is a starting right tackle, but like I said earlier, that guy they traded for was Austin Deculus. He's primarily a right tackle, 6'5", 321. More of a pass blocker than a run blocker, but they seem to like him. And going through his stats, he's improved. From his rookie year to his second year, looks like he's improved. Now I'm going to go on the defense. I'm going to start with the edge guys, right? You got Khalil Mack, Bud Dupree, Tuli Pelotu, Caleb Murphy, who really was a standout all preseason. Him and Trey Morris Brash, but Traymon Morris Brash got waived and did not get picked back up on the practice squad, which was really confusing for me because the guy they did pick back up was a rookie, and I'll get into him in a little bit, but really confused. I'm really happy Caleb Murphy got picked up. Made the 53. The guy really balled out, man. I mean, he had like a strip sack. He's just got it. He's got it. And I know you guys, you're not Chargers fans, so you don't know what I'm getting at, but there's a guy I'm leaving out, and that's our 4th round pick, Kyle Kennard, who made perfect sense why they drafted him, but been an absolute no-show throughout all preseason, and is now looking like a freaking project player. And of course, they got to keep him on the 53 because you don't put a 4th round on waivers; they'll get swooped up, especially a guy with accolades
Right.
like he has, coming from South Carolina and the SEC. So there's that. But another thing I talked about weeks ago was my hot take when we did hot takes was I felt like the Chargers D-line, because I know, Jack, you were like, oh, you guys lost Puna Ford and Morgan Fox, and Morgan Fox got picked up by the Falcons and then they released him. So that just shows what an idiot Brandon Staley is. I'm not saying Morgan Fox is a bad player. I'm just saying there were some guys on this team during his regime that aren't even starters on other teams. My hot take was I think this Chargers D-line, and I said this, I don't know how long ago, Richie, that show was, but I said it a while ago. I said this D-line is going to be a strength of this team. And guys a lot smarter than me have been parroting the same exact stuff these last few days. Wow. They're like, this D-line is deep, and they are scheme fits. And guys who have watched, the All-22s or who are at the games, the beat reporters, they're like, this D-line looks really, really good. And I can't wait to see it in action this season. And the thing is that Jesse Mitchell likes to do is rotate these guys in and out, rotate them. They're rotating, first down, second down. Okay, new guys coming in on third, different series. So that should be fun. It looks like they've got, on the D-line, there's 5 of these guys, but last time I checked, there were 6. It's Tier Tart, Jamari Caldwell. Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. There's more than that. It's Deshaun Hand. We got him in the offseason. Justin Eboigbe in year 2. He was the end. They kicked inside after he gained a bunch of weight. Tier Tart. Really excited about him with more playing time. Scott Matlock, which he's our two-way player, fullback / D tackle, and I'm not a fan of him on defense, even though some are saying he looked better. Jamari Caldwell. Let me get into Caldwell real quick. Caldwell led.
He's it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to jump in. Since he said he wanted to only play D tackle, or you think they're going to actually use him at the fullback position this year?
Yes, 100%. He'll play more fullback than he will D tackle, in my opinion. So Jamari Caldwell was a pick that stunned a lot of fans, in the draft. They're like, who the hell is this guy? Well, he led all rookies in the interior D-line in preseason in run defense and run stop grade. He was graded out an 82.4. So this guy's the real deal. We'll see him when it counts, but he's showing all the traits. And then Otito Ogbonnia was a guy we drafted at UCLA years ago who suffered that same injury that Rashawn Slater had, the ruptured patella tendon, and by all accounts has looked better than ever. So we'll see him this year. I think he might be going into his final season of his rookie contract. We'll see. And then another guy, Naquan Jones, that they brought in on a 1-year deal as well. And then linebackers, Denzel Perryman, Raider fans know him. Troy Dye, real sleeper linebacker in my opinion. Deion Henley, stud. And then showing Junior Colson, but we know he's on IR, so that's Marlo Wax is now there, and that's the UDFA. And then Delshon Phillips, who's a special teams guy, so that'll be our 5th linebacker. And then I'll just go cornerbacks. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they're keeping 12 guys, there's 8 cornerbacks. Jesus Christ, they're keeping a lot of secondary. Tarheeb Steele, Benjamin St. Juste, that Commanders fans were clapping when he left. For some reason, our defensive coordinator sees something in him. And this is the guy that everybody wanted gone. Every Chargers fan did not want to see this guy back this season. It was Jasir Taylor. But this is where our special team coach comes in and I think pulls his weight. Jasir Taylor is an extremely good gunner on special teams. And he's a savvy vet, but he sucks. He sucks, man. He sucks. He sucks at nickel corner. But the thing is, we've got a guy for him, and that's Nico Reed, who I talked about earlier. Nico Reed is an up-and-coming guy. And then I'll go on the other side is Dante Jackson. He's a zone guy from the Steelers we picked up. Cam Hart.
What position? Just because you're like, the other fans don't know what position that
He's
you say.
Jack, I'm just listing cornerbacks right now.
Okay.
And Dante Jackson, got him from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So right now it's looking like Tarheeb Steele out of Maryland. So this is his second year. And Dante Jackson will be the starting corners. And then you got Cam Hart, Dean Leonard, who is on IR, so he's on that short-term IR. And then Eric Rogers, who's also on that short-term IR. And then we'll go with safeties, and that's Derwin James, Alohi Gilman, Elijah Molden, Kendall Williamson, who I talked about earlier. And then let me get into I have it bookmarked because there's RJ Mickens. RJ Mickens was a draft pick this year, and he had a 90.7 PFF grade this preseason, 19 total tackles, 3 pass breakups, 50 passing yards allowed, 80.8 passer rating allowed, 0 touchdowns allowed, and 1 forced fumble. So
that's a really good.
Yes. I could see this guy, RJ Mickens, taking Alohi Gilman's spot next season, along with Kendall Williamson getting thrown in.
That's a guy you got to keep your eyeballs on. Everyone in the AFC West right there. That's a super high grade.
And then just go to special teams, Cameron Dicker the kicker. And I'm going to give a shout out to J.K. Scott. J.K. Scott looked really good, especially in this last game. I was kind of briefly went over it that there was a ton of 3-and-outs throughout the game. So there was a lot of punts. And J.K. Scott's always had the hang time. And in this game, he really showed the hang time plus the distance and the accuracy with his punts. So looking for a big year from him. And then our kick returners, Darius Davis. And looks like Hassan Haskins will be backup kick returner. Keandre Lambert-Smith, one of our 5th-round wide receivers everybody's really excited about. So Darius Davis looks like he's going to do mostly the kick return and punt return on the team. But, yeah, I feel like I'm excited about this team, really excited. I just feel like they're missing a piece or two. And for me, that's primarily on the interior line. I would love to see them bring in a guard somehow or some way, a guard that's got some sort of playing, like some sort of experience. Sorry, guys. Because when I'm looking at the practice squad, I'm seeing, 1 year Carson Barnhart guard. He's out of Michigan and didn't play that well. And I'm seeing Branson Taylor. They cut our 6th-round pick, and then they picked him back up on waivers. He just didn't look ready. He didn't look ready in the preseason. He didn't look ready for, he didn't want to start him or anything like that. But definitely looks like we need another interior lineman. And then Josh Katlenberger, center, they brought back. Just some of these guys. I mean, there's been other guys that have talked nicely about them and that really broke down their film, but the overall grades throughout preseason just shows that these guys are just not up to par where they should be. So that's why they're on the practice squad, and obviously the coaching staff thinks they can develop them, which they'll need to be because I think I checked. It's kind of Chargers have 24 free agents next season, and a lot of them are vets. So they've got a lot of tough decisions going into next season.
Are a lot of those, vets that you have, are they going to be like high-paid free agents, or just kind of,
Potentially, yeah. Potentially.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. So, but what I am seeing is I'm seeing a youth movement, which I like. I'm seeing them bring in this mixture of vets with the youth, like every team, but I'm seeing some like high-end youth guys, which I'm not used to under the Telesco regime. Telesco really liked to get like on paper, the Chargers look always like, oh my God, they look stacked. And then,
Dude, they were the
you
paper
know,
tigers, man, under
yeah,
Telesco.
by week 5, you know, 5 of those guys are hurt, and you've got these no names that shouldn't be playing are backing them up. So I feel this is like probably, I say this now and we'll see, but I feel confident with the depth at most positions, minus the offensive line, interior offensive line.
I got one last question for you, DZ, because, again, just going over your IR report, and it seems like it's the same thing year in and year out. Do you guys still have like the same trainer?
The
It's
trainer,
like,
this is a new trainer. This is Ben Herbert. He came from Michigan.
Second year.
Yeah, second year. Yeah, I don't know. I could be superstitious. I could be like, we're effing cursed. Because I mean, the biggest one that was Slater, right? And then Junior Colson.
Right.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to say. I'm glad.
I'm blaming on Gavin Newsom.
I think there's something in the water in California. I'll tell you that, because, I mean, you can look at. I don't know about the Rams. Well, the Rams weren't they super banged up like a couple years ago? And the Niners are, they have no receivers on the team. So it's like there's got to be something going on in the water in California. I always joke that there's too much.
Well, maybe you don't get any water in California. When they try to turn on the fire hoses, there's no water coming out to put out the fire. So maybe it's a lack of water.
But you save the smell. That's what matters, right? So, Jack, question for you. Moving on to your team, DZ gave us a lot of information there, a lot of young guys to keep an eye on. And one other thing before we move on to the Raiders there, Jack, something to keep in mind for all the people here is this is the first iteration of our team's rosters. It is quite first off, most of our teams, with the exception of the Raiders, who are earlier in the, although not that much earlier, but still earlier in the waiver claims, we have to make decisions once you claim a guy and get a guy. And so this is going to be going on for the next day or so, where we're going to be ebbing and flowing pretty heavily when it comes to our 53-man roster, as well as our practice squad. So expect some additional movement, and there'll be some really interesting things ahead for all of our teams. So this is the first draft, if you will, of the 53-man roster. Yes. And week 1, there will absolutely be changes. So
and giving me a little, real quick, and giving me a little hope that this isn't the final 53 is our GM. Even though some people think he sat on his hands, which he did in these last 2 drafts, considering pertaining to interior offensive line, he does like to turn that back into that roster over. He did it all last season. There's no reason to think he won't do it again. And, Jim Harbaugh said, let Chef Ortiz cook. So I got a feeling they got something up their sleeve. We'll see. But take it away, Jack.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to, again, shout out to all the, everyone in the chat, Raiders Shield family, who's my backup on this show if I can't make it. Tomorrow, he's got a show, 8 Eastern tomorrow. So please check out his show. And, Big E, you asked, a fun question. And, I'm just going to, repeat it. So Big E said, hey, pick one player from each team that you can have, just one. And I think, when we have, less to talk about, maybe like, a week or so, I think that would be a fun thing to, have a conversation about and why. So I really do like that. So since we don't have a Chargers host on the show, I just got to say, hey, Ray Rice got a 6-game suspension. That was just handed up.
Rashid Rice.
Rashid Rice. Sorry. Yeah. And it's like, oh, of course. What game's week number 7? Oh, against the Raiders. So he's coming back fresh. Oh, yeah. It figures. And then, another guy that they cut was someone that Alex was really, hyping last year in preseason was Carson Steele. So he got cut. So there's your Kansas City Chiefs,
How about
comments.
Mike Pennell also?
I'm not familiar with him.
Longtime D tackle for them, but I don't know if he got picked up on the preseason or their practice squad. But Mike Pennell, I believe, got cut from them as well. It's huge.
And the last thing, I will say also to that, yep, I'm glad if he's a big player, good, go, gone.
No,
bye-bye.
But vested vets can often make a nod and a handshake deal with the head coach and the owner if they are vested vets to be sent away, and then they'll brought back to the practice squad. They're kind of compensated accordingly for whatever the thing is, like through signing bonuses and some other things that they'll yeah, exactly. And just don't pay attention to what's in the palm. And then and then they'll be coming back, and then week 2 or 3, the first injury, the dude will be called up and then back on the 53-man roster, and they'll bump someone else off. Like, that's just the way that it works.
Yep.
Yeah, it's always interesting every year. That is for sure. So it's like, Richie, my team went the same route as your team. We invested heavy in O-linemen. We got 10. We might even have 11, but I don't know if this is true because, again, there's so much information coming out, and I forgot that guy's name, and I wrote it down, but it's no one I've never heard of, but that we picked up. So, oh, dude, what's his name? Offensive tackles, Stone Forsythe. 27 years old, 6'8", 306 pounds, 21 draft, 6th round, and he came from Seattle. So if that's the case, if that one's true, I can see it because, Pete Carroll, just for knowing the guy. So, I mean, So there could be possibly 11. So the interesting thing I thought was when the Raiders came out with their initial 53, the two shockers was Thayer Munford was still on this squad. I was like, I think, me and pretty much everyone that's in the Raider Nation was going, what the hell is this dude even making a squad? I mean, he was a 7th round draft pick, kind of sad his first year, and then kind of took over as starter and played okay. And then he loses his job, to Tom Telesco's guy, last year, after he got hurt and never came back. And in all the preseason games he played, he looked horrible. I mean, dude was a straight up, as you guys would love to say, and I say it too, dog water. He was a turnstile. And it's like anyone, it's like you're going against 2nd and 3rd stringers and everyone's getting by you. And you made the 53-man roster. And the second thing I thought was really surprising with AOC 12, which I brought up earlier in the show, is that, he fractured his hand. He's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. He made the roster, and again, quote unquote, I don't buy it. Kind of Tom Brady's guy, and Cam Miller from North Dakota State. He played good in the first game, not good in the second 2 games, but gets cut. And thank God he made it to the practice squad, and I'm happy about that. Let him learn. I mean, he wasn't ready. So it's like, but why are you keeping AOC 12 if you're out 6 to 8 weeks? At least throw him on IR for 4 weeks and then figure it out after 4 weeks. So I'm literally about 10 minutes before the show happened, they actually put him on the IR, which I was happy about. I mean, there's no reason to keep that guy on there and not have a roster spot because of that. The running backs, I thought was kind of interesting. Pete Carroll talked a lot about, we want to have guys on the special teams. So you got Genty, you got Zamir McCormick, who I thought was possibly a cut candidate because, man, the dude ran with blinders on. So I see what his role is going to be and the way Pete wants to use him. He just wants to use that dude as like, you know, your 3rd and 1, you're down and dirty guy. Like, you know, he's the biggest back on the team. So I can see him, like, you don't have to do much. You don't have to read a lot. You just got to run forward and, you know, get that 1 yard. And he was splitting time with Mozart at the number 2. So Mozart was actually coming for that last cut. He's an older guy, but, you know, I think he's probably one of the better 3rd down backs on the team. And he still has some legs. He's still got some quickness. So he made the squad. And then, you know, Dylan Laube, who last year, again, we talked about this, you know, I think even Alex drafted him if I'm correct on his fantasy in the beginning, because he had an amazing preseason. He made a squad, and he made a squad because his special teams. So Pete Carroll said that, you know, special teams is going to play a big part of this. So that's how he made a team. And there was like only 2 rookies that didn't make the team. And there was like the quarterbacks. One was a converted wide receiver, and Tommy Mellott didn't show up, didn't really do anything. He had 1 big return for like 40-something yards. He's gone, and he's like the one player. I'm guessing somebody must have picked him up because he's not on the practice squad. But I will say the most excited player I'm about, okay. So the most exciting player I've been talking about in this whole offseason is Lockie Tossie.
Yep.
And when they cut him, I'm like, I'm just hoping he slips through. So I was worried, but he slipped through, and so he doesn't count against the practice squad for player number 17 because international player. And I want to see the Raiders develop him. I mean, I don't even care. He's better than Mumford right now. I mean, straight up. And Mumford's got what, 4th year in the league, 5th year in the league. And Lockie Tossie, you know, playing what, 2 games is better. Man, I'm just so glad to see that guy. The one player that I am really surprised, which I hated, was Amari Gainer. And I always talk about this guy. I mean, he was
split. The fan base seems split about him, though, right? Or no?
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that are, but I agree. I think it's split. So for me, you know, I see him as a very athletic linebacker, but he's also, if you're talking pure linebacker, you know, just pure linebacker with the guys that they have on this roster right now, there's not a pure linebacker that can cover like him. Every guy is like, you know, a middle linebacker, a run stuffing linebacker. So I mean, DZ, picture this. You got 3 Perrymen as your linebackers. Yeah, you're going to stuff all the runs, but what are you going to do against the pass? So I mean, you know, and yes, I get people that, you know, keep telling me like, you know, okay, you know, Jamal Adams, who they brought in, you know, was a converted safety, is now the best coverage linebacker. Facts. But as a pure linebacker, he was. So I definitely going to miss that guy. And then when we talked about the waiver wire, so the Raiders did use that number 6 waiver wire selection, and they picked up defensive end Brandon Jackson from the Rams. He's a 2024 5th-round draft pick. And in this preseason, he's tied for number 2 in the NFL in sacks with 3. He's 6'4", 265, and he's got 5 pressures on top of that.
Big boy.
So it's like when you look at, you know, again, making a trade with the Eagles, right? We talk about depth. Raiders trade one of their, you know, starting cornerbacks last year to get Booker. Depth, freak athletic, needs more technique. And then you go into another team where they're deep on the defensive line and you pick up, you know, Brandon Jackson. I am liking that play. So 10 offensive linemen, maybe 11. And right now, 10 between the defensive end in a 4-3 scheme, defensive end and tackles. They got 10 there too. So I'm liking, you know, I'm liking what they're doing that way. They're kind of making up for the Christian Wilkins, you know, fiasco because that was a huge loss.
Let me answer this real quick. So, whatever piano ASAP. So Willie Lampkin was the highest graded offensive lineman this preseason, and the Eagles snatched him up. And that was what we were talking about before the show, Richie, where he was banged up, and it was kind of like this deal, like, hey, we're gonna get you back on the practice squad. And the Howie Roseman said, nope, we're scooping him up. So it's kind of a dick move by the Eagles, but it is what it is, right? Rams offensive lineman.
Yeah, you kind of run the risk actually when you. Yeah, it's the Rams, but you run the risk when you do that kind of stuff where other teams are going to do that to you as well. So now the Eagles are going to be persona non grata when it comes to that kind of stuff. But to be quite honest, like their team is so stacked in terms of some of their linemen and stuff like that
They just
they're
snatched
probably
the
in a
highest
position where
graded
they're
dude, and what the.
yeah,
Oh,
they're like, I don't care. Like, what are you
yeah.
gonna do about it? Like, we're
Right.
good. We were good before, and now we're better now. Go to hell, right? Like, that was their like, just leave me alone. And so, I think it's really interesting in terms of how the Eagles operate. They're very well run overall in terms of how they operate, and so good for them.
Yeah, Howie Roseman's like 1 of 1.
I have a theory on that, but it's inappropriate for this show.
Yeah. But anyways, remember, this is the first iteration of our rosters. We're going to continue to see some ebbs and flows as the season goes on. I'm sure there will be players that we were expecting more of that we will not be pleased with as the season goes on. And there'll be players that we do not expect to kind of come out and shine. We'll be discussing all of that as the season goes on. As you said, DZ, we are a very short period of time away now from our first NFL game where it actually counts. And
Was it Thursday kicks off? Who's the Thursday night game? Is that Eagles or something? Who is it? You guys know?
I don't know.
I don't know. And Stoffel, I agree. Getting Jackson, Bo Jackson,
Cowboys, Eagles.
Cowboys, Eagles. Okay.
Jackson, the wide receiver, he shined in this preseason. He was one of those young guys that shined, and I'm glad we got him on the practice squad. I'll say that.
This is going to be an interesting season, man.
So we're going to have some interesting news probably in terms of changes to our rosters, as well as some kind of look ahead kind of comments for next week's show. And then it gets right into analysis of the season right from here. This is where things, the rubber hits the road and where it gets really exciting from here on out. So
I want to add one last thing, just one last thing to this show.
Where if you call out all the other people in the chat again, I'm going to lose
rock and roll, Jack.
Yeah, no. The Raiders did inquire today about Micah Parsons. So the Cowboys, they don't want to trade him, but they called up Dallas. So, I mean, keep your eyeballs on that one.
That's interesting because you kind of need that extra on the other side to kind of give yourself a tandem there on the team. So that makes some sense.
Parsons and Crosby, ooh, that would be nasty.
Yeah, and I think that would be the reason why they'd be willing to give up the capital, right? Keep in mind that Geno Smith is signed for another 2 years. They have the cap to handle and absorb a new contract. So that makes some sense. But, I mean, if you're going to be honest, Jack, the Raiders would be better suited rebuilding on both sides of the lines through the draft and the younger side of things. And then you can build out the skill positions after.
Well, like I just said, they picked up, with their waiver wire pick, which is number 6, they just picked up Brendan Jackson. So again, I don't know, but that's what I heard. And they got potentially 21 guys between the offensive line and the defensive line. That's what they're trying to do. I just thought it would be a fun fact to throw it in there at the very end.
This is true, by the way. This was on record, or at least certainly like you can pull up the recording and find it. Like he was very, very specific about that comment, Jack. But I think at the end of the day, what is clear is Micah Parsons not too happy in Dallas.
Right.
So,
I'm happy. The more unhappy he is, and the more happy everyone else is.
Yeah. So, anywho, guys, that'll do it for tonight's show. Thank you all for joining. We're going to go right into some deeper analysis about the 53 coming into the first game of the regular season. And we'll be kind of matching up our teams against our opponents, talking about all that kind of stuff, looking ahead or backwards at that point in terms of who's left on our 53 and who joined, all that good stuff, and practice squad. Ebbs and flows will be galore. You do tend to end up with a bit of an ebb and flow through the first 3 to 4 weeks in the NFL season, and then there tends to be a bit of leveling out as things typically go on as the season moves forward. But anyways, until next week, where the West Side's the best side, we will continue to bring you all of the things having to do with the AFC West. Peace!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute,